So the new Suicide Squad game, I've heard about this game. I heard that this game was so bad that it actually got delayed for how bad it was for them to make it good. But it turns out that if you're cooking a shit pie, the solution to it isn't to finish cooking the pie.
Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is dead on arrival, and I can't say it surprises me or anybody else because the writing was on the wall the minute they announced the game. Now, with that said, I want to talk about some of the hate surrounding the game. I want to talk about a little bit of the criticisms that some people have had. But more than anything, I want to talk about how we can avoid things like this in the future, because if we don't, we're going to see the loss of some of our favorite franchises, and a lot of people are going to be without a job. Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg writes, last month in Los Angeles, video game journalists got to play a few hours of the upcoming Suicide Squad game from Warner Brothers. This week, they published previews, and the results weren't pretty. I left the preview feeling less optimistic than I came in, wrote IGN's Destin Laguirre. Eurogamer lamented, this might not be the superhero fantasy you were looking for. Negativity has long surrounded Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, which comes out on February 2nd, in part because the franchise is underperformed, but mostly because the game is illustrative of the type of trend chasing that has led to a lot of heartbreak over the years. Rocksteady...
I think the problem is that the game, like, if I look at the gameplay there, it doesn't look good. Like, fundamentally, what is the difference between this and Remnant 2? Well, Remnant 2 is a better game. It doesn't matter about, like, the style of the game. It just sucks.
Studios, the London-based developer behind the game, was once an industry darling thanks to its critically acclaimed Batman Arkham series, which revolutionized superhero games with innovative gameplay and original stories rather than movie tie-ins. Then the company had announced that it had pivoted from narrative single-player action games to a third-person multiplayer shooter, dismaying fans. I've always had this
it's also because it's fucking stupid. Like, am I the only person who thinks that there's nobody in the Suicide Squad that can beat Superman? They can't beat the Green Lantern. They can't beat Aquaman. They can't beat Wonder Woman. Like, there's no way. It's fucking impossible. So how can you possibly kill the Justice League besides maybe Batman? And probably even Batman can clear them because he's basically got a superpower. He's a fucking billionaire. Meanwhile, like, you've got Harley Quinn, who has a baseball bat. There's a guy who's a walking shark. And then Deadshot, you know, the guy Will Smith played, oh, he's really good at shooting guns. Like, what is this? It's just like such a ridiculous fucking thing to even have as a premise of a story. It's so stupid.
Between superhero video game and a game that just so happens to be about superheroes. And I feel like the latter is the one that Rocksteady Studios always leaned on because, well, it felt like they made a game first that just so happened to be about Batman. And it was something that really resonated with people because they made such a great game in the first place. They ended up building this really strong audience, this really strong following. However, now we have Warner Brothers wanting to come in and exploit all of that goodwill so that they can try to pull in all those microtransaction live service dollars because that's exactly what this situation is. It's trend chasing.
Well, I think that like the Suicide Squad game, it's like one of those things that is an example of everything wrong with games. Like if you look at what do people think is wrong with games, it's like the old meme of Battle Pass, established franchise, mediocre gameplay, looter shooter, seasons, always online, like skins, like it's everything in one.
You're absolutely right on this. And this is something that we've seen across the industry for a while now, but it's deeper than that. It's not just a surface level thing where people want to be Fortnite, they want to be Call of Duty,
naturally.
They want to be all these live service games that are making all of this money. No, it actually goes beyond that. The core root of this issue is that who are you making these games for? It doesn't make a lot of sense to look at the audience that Rocksteady has built over this time and say, oh, well, yeah, we're going to make them...
Well, they probably are informed by, like... And this is the problem, is that people, like, they have, like, these... like focus groups and consulting firms and all of these groups of people that are supposed to like educate them on what the public thinks. And it's like, it's nice to have that kind of stuff, but you shouldn't use that as an actual decision maker. Whereas I think they are. I think they're looking at like, you have people that are making these decisions that don't play video games. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is what we need to have. No, you don't.
looter shooter.
None of them play the game, yeah.
What? How do you know that audience even plays those games to begin with, especially when historically the games that they have been purchasing from you are single-player action games? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And this is something that we've seen throughout the industry.
It's just trend chasing. Yeah, like, just putting all of the buzzwords together.
Time and time again. Redfall is another example, a perfect example of this, because they're going to mirror each other, not only in their sales, but also in the downfall of the game as well. Because who was Redfall made for? Who was asking Arcane, out of all studios, to be making a vampire looter shooter?
Well, the problem with Redfall is that the game was bad. I actually don't think the premise of the game is the problem. I don't. I think that the game is just bad. It's the same as like Gollum. Like, could Gollum have been good? I don't know if it could have ever been good, but it damn well could have been a lot better than it was. Hell no. Well, if you wanted to make a good Gollum game, you would have to make it like a psychological, like, horror game that's almost like a visual novel. Like, I think that's the only way you could make a good Gollum game. And it's like, that'd be cool. Yeah, that could maybe be interesting. But, and then, like, this is my point, right? It's the problem is not necessarily the premise of the game. The problem is the implementation of that premise. Because at the bottom of every single game, like Redfall or the Suicide Squad, the gameplay fundamentally is dog shit. I don't see a lot of these games that get panned and everybody's making videos about how bad they are whenever the gameplay fundamentally is good.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Even if the game turns out to be better than earlier previews suggest, it won't be what many Arkham fans want from Rocksteady. Suicide Squad is an online live service game with cosmetic microtransactions and a stream of content that will continue after the launch as Warner Brothers attempts to chase the Grand Theft Auto 5 and Fortnite dragons.
And that's really the problem. It's that they're making decisions on design based off of something that isn't even theirs. Like, whenever you're using another game or like another type of game as a North Star, rather than looking at like, how can I make my game like the best version of what it's supposed to be, then you're going to have a problem. Like, here's a really great example. Think about how much worse Baldur's Gate 3 would be if it was a real-time action combat game like Elden Ring or like Dark Souls. I guarantee you it probably would not even be a fraction as good as it was. But because they had their own North Star, they were making the game their way, and the game was fucking amazing. And at least I've heard. I haven't played it. Before you guys fucking stop. Like, I will play it eventually, just not yet. But anyway, same with Dark Souls 1. Same with Elden Ring. The reason why these games... Look at Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 doesn't have any of this bullshit. It's just an Armored Core game. Look at Sekiro. Like, these are games that are good on their own. And, like, of course they're informed by other games in the industry, but they're not trying to be other games in the industry. That's the issue.
These games as a service, which are monetized long after release, are so appealing to executives that Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. CEO David Zaslav recently said all their big games would follow suit moving forward. We have seen so many...
What's this here? Games as a service, which are monetized long after release, are so appealing to executive Warner Bros. Said that all their big games would follow suit. It's not like games, live service games... I think this is the problem that live service games have, is that it's very hard for every game in the ecosystem to exist as a live service game. It's okay to have one or two live service games, but whenever every single game is a live service game, there's like a sense of exhaustion that sets in, because it's like, okay, I have to do this, like this game, and then I have to play this game and keep up with this thing, and then I have to, make sure I do my battle pass for this. And like, that's what it is, right? It's like exhausting. So like people end up like falling out of the loop of playing the game. And what ends up happening, I think also, is that people get like battle passes and these like daily login rewards and everything. They keep people in the loop in the ecosystem of the game, but they also keep people out of it. Because how many of you guys have played a live service game and you were playing every day and you were keeping up, and then for whatever reason, you missed a day or two? And then you played it maybe 1 or 2 days after that, and then you just stopped playing the game. There it is. Because the FOMO acts as a barrier to entry. Because it's like, okay, well, now I'm behind. Because you think about it, right? FOMO is psychologically designed to appeal to players who care about progression. Because if you don't care about progression, FOMO doesn't affect you, because who gives a fuck? So if you care about progression and you know that you're behind, you don't want to play a game that you're behind in.
All their big games would follow suit moving forward.
Yeah.
We have seen so many studios close over the last few years. We've seen so many layoffs over the last couple of years, even starting into this year. And while some of that has to do with the rise of AI or just general bloat in the tech industry, it goes beyond that, because what it ends up actually being is, well, executives like David Zaslav that believe that they can just go and chase these Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto dollars. But that's not how this works. You have to already have a franchise, or you have to have had something that's already bringing these people in to begin.
Fortnite plays really well. Suicide Squad doesn't. I've watched gameplay, and that right there is the bottom line. Grand Theft Auto plays well. That's the real issue. And it's the hardest problem to solve.
You have to have a target audience. It's basic marketing 101.
Yeah.
And they don't have one. They just think, well, if we make the live service, they come. No, that's not how this works. And even if you did make a good live service game, if you're not positioning that properly for your target audience, the regular customers that gave you the money, that put that studio...
You know what this kind of reminds me of, now that he's talking about it in this way? It reminds me of how certain streamers feel like they have to play a popular game. Oh, well, I have to play this popular game because if I don't play this popular game, like, I need to play all the new games. I need to play Among Us. I need to play Fortnite. I need to play Lethal Company. I need to play Call of Duty. And they're constantly trying to chase a trend, and they'll just never be successful because they don't even understand what makes the people successful in those markets. It's like, basically, by trying to do it, you indicate that you should never succeed.
In the place that it is today, you're still not going to succeed. Why? Because it's brand loyalty.
Right.
People are loyal to the things that they are. That's as simple as that. The people that play Grand Theft Auto 5 likely are the people that played Grand Theft Auto 4, Grand Theft Auto 3, probably not 2. I played 2.
Speaking of Grand Theft Auto.
It's an over-the-head game.
Yeah.
Makes me feel old when I say that. But with that said, if you don't know who your target audience is and you're not positioning your products properly to make sure that they are resonating with that audience, then you're just not going to do well. And for the fact that these people are so disconnected from their audiences, that they don't know their needs nor care about them, and think that they're going to be able to just go and make them sweet, sweet microtransaction dollars.
Well, this is the problem, right? Is that they don't understand why people like the games. Because if you don't understand why people enjoyed the games, you can never make a game that people will like. You can never actually solve the problem because you don't even understand what it is. And this is what happens with certain streamers too. Is it like you go back and you look at like how many streamers were really popular from Among Us, or they were really popular from Fortnite, and now they're like fucking irrelevant. Nobody cares about them. Nobody watches them. The reason why that is because they didn't understand why people liked watching them. And they weren't able to continue to create that kind of content. Yeah, 20 viewer Andes. Yeah, they didn't have anything beyond the game. No, they didn't. And it's like that's the problem that a lot of these games have too. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes something popular and what makes, what you're doing good or not good. Like for me, I one of the reasons why I don't really play a lot of like very guided games unless they're like kind of an experience type game like the Coffin of Andy and Laylee game is because people like watching me for just like hearing me talk about stuff and seeing like takes on games and like random shit. People aren't watching me to see somebody who's really good at a video game. So I'm not trying to ever go and prove myself. Like, I'm not going to go try to beat the hardest version of a game to prove it to everybody that I can do it. Because even if I win, I still lose. Because nobody cared in the first place. So whenever I realized that, I completely changed my outlook on how I would do streaming. And guess what? It massively helped my stream. Because you have to understand what people like. Like Remnant? Well, I played Remnant a lot off stream. I think I'm actually on the last boss of the game now. I've almost beaten it. You know, above average new Monster Hunter player. Oh, I mean, I'm saying like being an above average new player is fine, but like I'll give you an example. Is it something that people would really want to see, to watch me spend 9 hours wiping and relearning Arc-Tempered Velkhana? Probably not. And also, some people would. But there are a lot of other people that would want to see me play another game even more. Because there's always going to be some people that like seeing that, but there's also going to be a lot of people who don't. Depends on if it's entertaining. Yeah, exactly.
You are going to be sorely surprised when you find out you can't. Schreier continues with, but the track record for companies that pivot to multiplayer is dismal. Recent live service flops like Anthem, Redfall, and Marvel's Avengers all came from game studios that had previously been beloved for their single-player titles. Nobody wants Suicide Squad to suffer the same.
Why are Harley Quinn's boobs so small? Who thought of this? What idiot thought this up? I'll tell you a problem right now. That's an issue right now, gentlemen. Like, what is that? Face is shit too. Yeah, just make her really hot. Like, why do you think people like Harley Quinn? Like, what are you, fucking stupid? What is this?
Fate. No wonder this weekend that following the previews, fans continue to repeat a rumor that won't die, that the developers at Rocksteady had originally pitched a game about Superman, which was rejected by Warner Brothers, and the company was instead forced to make this one. In reality, Rocksteady never pitched or worked on a Superman game, according to people familiar with the company's strategy over the last decade. Following the release,
the other problem I think that they have with Superman is that I don't think that people portray Superman in the right way. I think that the two best, like, adjacent versions of Superman are it's too OP. Well, it's not that it's too OP. I think one example, of course, is like Tommen in Game of Thrones. Tommen is a very good boy. He's a nice guy. And bad things happen because he's unwilling to be an asshole. Like, you know that fucking guy from, who was it? The guy that looked like Pope Francis. The High Sparrow. You think that guy would have tried that shit around Joffrey? Or Tywin? Absolutely fucking not. He'd be up on a stake. And so, and it's like there's a part of you that wishes, like, oh man, I wish these horrible characters were still around because they could get rid of this even worse character. And I think the other example I can use is Jonathan Joestar in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, is that you should base Superman off of Jonathan Joestar. Somebody with a sterling character, universally good, fights only for truth, justice, and to protect people. And like they always try to make Superman a morally gray character. In my opinion, Superman isn't a morally gray character. And that's what makes him special. So like the moment that you start doing that is the moment you diverge completely from like what the story really is. He's evil. Well, he's not human. Yeah. But he basically is though, right? And so I think that he should be like that. And he's not from Earth? Yeah. And it's like, well, I mean, you could take the approach, right? Because you're talking about that, like the Beyond Good and Evil Dr. Manhattan approach. I don't agree with that with Superman. I think that's clearly not what the character is supposed to be. It's like an idealized version of like what a man can be. And so, yeah, I think that's the problem that they have, is that people are very, I think that Western studios are very bad at writing like just completely lawful good characters, because they always have to add in some degree of gray or negativity. And I think that makes the character stupid. Whereas, like, I think a good example, how many of you guys that watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure were like, you were mad at the beginning that Jonathan did not call Dio out and just beat the fucking shit out of him right early on, tell his dad, and completely kick this guy out. And the reason why is because he wanted to give him a chance. He wanted to try to do, and again, the fact that he was trying to be such a good person created these bad outcomes. So you don't need to have every good character have a shade of gray in them, because good characters exist in a bad world, and that creates its own problems in itself. You don't need to do that. And so that's what makes a good story. It's genius writing. It is. It's brilliant writing. And so that's, I think, the other problem that they have is that the characters are just not written very well. Straight up. I just don't think they're written very well. The Sin of Pride character in Seven Deadly Sins is peak character design. Escanor, he absolutely is. He's fucking amazing. Yeah, he's by far the coolest character. It's not even a question.
Case of Arkham Knight in 2015, the studio began working on a Batman VR game and then an unannounced multiplayer game set in the original franchise, which has not been previously reported. Another notable entry from Schreier says that the really bad news for Rocksteady is that the market is dangerously oversaturated. Even if the new Suicide Squad game overcomes low expectations and turns out to be a fantastic product, it's hard to imagine a new multiplayer live service game succeeding in an era where even stalwarts like Destiny can't seem to grow. And there's a lot to say here.
One of the reasons why I don't play Destiny is because Destiny 2 has gone through like 8 years of FOMO, and I don't want to have to figure all of it out. Like, if Destiny 3 came out, I would play it on release. But the game is just too over-designed. There's too much to it. I don't even know how to buy the game. I'm not going to play it. It's too much, man.
Here. And one of the things that I'm seeing
like,
that
wow,
a lot of these
I think
studios are having an issue with is
the way I feel about Destiny is I think the way a lot of people feel about WoW. They're like, oh, I don't want to start playing the game, bro. Like, there's like 6 expansions, 9 expansions, some shit like that. And like, I just can't deal with it.
Realize that there is a level of investment that comes with players that are playing live service games to begin with. If you think you're capturing a new live service audience, people that haven't played live service games before, you're wrong, because most of those people that aren't playing live service games are avoiding them on purpose. That's the reason why they're playing games like the Batman Arkham series or something like that. Now, with that said, think about that level of investment that's required for these players to be in games like Grand Theft Auto 5, Destiny, or Fortnite. Because many of those...
also a lot of people have been critical of Rockstar for how they've handled Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, people are not happy about that. They're not happy about how they said that like Red Dead Redemption 2, like the online for that game is like kind of, you know, like what the fuck. And so, and I don't really know a lot about this. I'm hearing all of this secondhand. So I could be a little bit wrong or off the off the focus here, but this is what I hear from people that play the game a lot. And so I don't even think that's entirely true, and that's Grand Theft Auto, one of the biggest video game franchises of all time.
Players are probably not going to come and play your game because they're already financially invested with their own interests in those other games.
That's right.
You're really unlikely to pull them across to yours with all of this busy work, got to play every single day, got to get that login bonus, got to farm up these currencies and things like that. It's really difficult to get a live service game off the ground, and it's a huge gamble to do so in the first place.
It's very exhausting. And like, I'll actually give props to MiHoYo, right? Because with they added this thing, like, you know, like a lot of these like gacha online games have some sort of play the game every day, and you have like a certain amount of energy that you can have in the game, and if you don't use the energy, you lose it. Well, they have something now where it's like rested energy, and the rested energy stacks up to like 10 days or 15 days or something like that. So like, if you stop playing the game for a long period of time, you can come back and catch up pretty quickly. And a lot of other games don't have stuff like this. Stacks to 1,000? No, I think it stacks to 2.4K, which is 10 days. Let's get back to it.
It's even more a gamble when you're doing it with a studio that's known for products that are mostly single player. You're not appealing to that audience. Those players do not want to play this game. This isn't the game that interests them. You're aiming for an audience that you don't even have yet in a market that's oversaturated with people that are invested in other games. It blows
It is true, but I actually think that none of this would matter. I do. I think that if the Suicide Squad game came out and it was really good, the progression systems were really good, the gunplay was awesome, and like the abilities you had were great, people would play it. I do. I think it's actually that simple. I think the game looks like shit. It's just that fucking simple. Like, it's about the market, like, bro, it's the market, and like, get battle passes. No, bro, like, look at the game. It looks like shit. Yeah, it does. I don't want to play it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Why didn't Rocksteady just make another great Batman game? I don't know.
My mind. How do these people even have jobs? And the worst part is, these are the same folks that, at the end of the day, if the game fails, who's going to get laid off?
The developers.
It's definitely not the executives. It's definitely not the people that are on the board. It's not the CEO.
Yeah.
No.
Which, to be fair, that did happen with Unity, which was a huge W.
The designers.
Even some of the board members got removed.
They'll be the ones to blame. The studio is the one that is going to suffer the most as a result of this. And that's really sad to see, especially from a studio that has done such great work for quite a while now. But they've worked for over half a decade on a live service game that it's just not going to work. So somebody is going to suffer the consequences of that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it definitely isn't going to be the people in charge.
Some of them, I'm sure it will be, but not all of them.
I think one of the things that bothers me about this when I read stories like this or I see games like this come out,
the problem is that people who are making decisions for where to steer the ship for making video games don't play them. One thing that is extremely reassuring to me whenever I'm hearing Microsoft is buying Blizzard is that you hear Phil Spencer, and it is also equally unreassuring because of how many hours he put into Starfield, but Phil Spencer plays a lot of video games. And because he plays a lot of video games, I have a better expectation that he will know what will be good for video games. Fucking imagine that.
There's this fundamental misunderstanding between what the players want, what the players need, and how to be able to service them properly so that you can make a profit. I realize that a lot of these companies want to get these live service games. Cool. Get your money. But do it in a way that you're actually going to be able to service an audience in the first place. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do otherwise. And by the way, this is the same kind of people that believe that RPG games are dead, that turn-based RPG games are dead. However, that was obviously proven wrong.
Baldur's Gate 3 was, like, it being a turn-based game was, I think, crucial to its success. But, like, that's like, you know, you get a pizza, and, you know, you ever get, like, a pizza, and there's, like, a slice of the pizza that's, like, kind of small, and it's like, yeah, we're going to give that to the person who, like, only paid $1 for this pizza? Yeah, well, that's, like, the turn-based slice of Baldur's Gate 3. I don't think that's the main reason why it's successful. I think that obviously if it wasn't turn-based, it would have a lot of problems, and yeah, sure. But it's also the fact that they had, like, state-of-the-art character rigging. Like, the dialogue was immaculate. The game possibilities were seemingly endless. That's why the game was really good. It being turn-based is, like, just, again, a secondary effect.
In a year in which
it's
2023,
one piece of pizza.
All the games of the year, the Game of the Year nominees, the best games, all the games that were the most purchased last year, none of them were live service. Heck, most of them didn't even have multiplayer.
To be honest, I actually think that live service games don't get enough respect. I think that it's kind of annoying to me that a game like Alan Wake 2, which is like, it's a nice game, sure. But like, bro, Fortnite. This game is servicing, like, this game is fucking massive. It's reinvented itself so many times. And it's like, I wish that there was more acknowledgement for live service games that are really good.
It's just disappointing. It really is. And it really just comes down to the fact that you have people that are in charge that are appealing to investors, but have no idea anything about the industry itself. They're just trying to trend chase and follow everybody else. And the worst part is that since they're doing it now, they're starting a leg behind already. If they started developing this game in 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that, well, if that's the case, the trends have already changed by the time that game gets released. You're not going to be able to make the next Fortnite because...
True, but 10 years ago, Baldur's Gate 3 would have kicked ass. 10 years from now, Baldur's Gate 3 will kick ass. Same thing with Elden Ring. Good games are timeless. Look at Vampire Survivors, Grand Theft Auto 6. This is only a problem because developers are not following a passion. They are following a trend. This is like, hey, we're going to make the popular new type of game.
Fortnite's already been out for that entire time that you were making that game in the first place. What these companies need to do is they need to start looking to the
I did
future.
mean Grand Theft Auto 6, by the way. I did. What I meant is, like, if they released Grand Theft Auto 6 5 years ago or 5 years from now, it wouldn't matter. It'll still be just as successful if it's a good game. Like, the current market doesn't matter.
Sure, they need to start to predict trends rather than chase them.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that you're going to do as a result is you're going to lose your fans, you're going to disappoint the audience that you've already captured, and you're probably going to ruin your studios at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've seen across the industry for quite a while now. And I've been scratching my head thinking to myself, looking at some of the games that have come out over the last couple of years, and I'm like, who are you making this for?
Yeah, why?
Look at the Gollum game. Who was that for? Redfall. Who was that for?
I think that the problem is that a lot of the people that are making decisions on, like, where to invest money into making games don't play video games enough to have their finger on the pulse of, like, what gamers want. And I think that what they do instead is they just rely on looking at which games are trending and then trying to move in that direction to hedge their bets. They're not actually making a decision based off of, like, being a gamer. They're making a decision based off of looking at a graph.
Kong game. What are you doing? It's like people in charge don't realize or know who they're selling to.
Yeah.
They don't have a face. They're not putting a face to the audience. I'm going to give you guys an odd example. So when I first started YouTube, I started a little podcast channel with me and my buddy, and we just talked about games. And the YouTube channel never got any traction.
Yeah.
Nobody ever really came to watch it. 1 or 2 or 3 people every once in a while would come by. And then one day I just woke up and thought to myself, you know, looking at other podcasts, people watch podcasts because they're people of authority or they're famous. And me and my friend were neither. So then what I did is that I just started making videos. Because
this is a big thing that a lot of streamers do too. Is that one of the big mistakes that I see streamers make is they focus all the time on, like, trying to follow a trend or doing what people that are popular do. And that's just usually not what you should do. Like, sometimes it is, but usually it's not. And they also do what they want to do. Like, I think streaming is, like, the best example of... It's a very healthy thing to sometimes treat streaming like a job. And it's also a very healthy thing to sometimes treat streaming like a hobby or a passion. And, like, for example, there are days that maybe I might not want to go over something, I might not want to do something, but I know people really want to see that. And so I say, fuck it. I'm not going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what everybody else wants to see today, and I'm going to try to make them happy. And other days, I think to myself, well, you know what? I want to do this for myself. I'm going to do that. But there's a lot of people who it's like they try to become streamers and they just do the same thing that they do if they weren't streaming. And that's just not how it works, guys. And this is the same thing I see with YouTube channels. They're like, why am I not successful? Well, the reason why you're not successful is you're playing, some dead game with, like, no camera and you're not talking to the chat. And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm streaming though. Well, like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, chasing the meta. Yeah, exactly. Bad content, man. Always bad content. That's the point of streaming. You don't want to feel like that person is working or being pushed to be in front of the camera. Well, no, I don't even think this is true. I'll read your comment again, just so people can hear it. The point of streaming, you don't want to feel like that person is working or being pushed to be in front of the camera. I actually don't think that matters. I think that, like, one thing that I've learned is that content is key. Content is king. Content is everything. And if you have bad content, you have a problem. If you have good content, you're winning. That's it. And so it's not about whether the person does or doesn't want to be on camera. Like, there are a lot of days whenever I wake up and it's like, like, maybe I'll just go live at 7 at night today for 2 hours and then play Monster Hunter with no cam on. And I could go and do that, and it would be fine, and people would like that. But sometimes I take what I would want to do, and I say, I will do what people want to do today, or I'll meet somewhere in the middle. And so, yeah, that's normal. And that's what I was saying before about, like, you don't want to indulge in only doing what you want to do all of the time as a streamer or as a developer, because whenever you do that, you eventually lose sight of what your audience is.
To make myself a person of either authority or purpose or of interest. And I had, some minor success to it. I have a decent YouTube channel and a great community that watches my videos. You have to have that humble nature to be able to look at yourself, look at what you're making.
Well, the difference is that he's providing value. Like, this video provides value because it's an analysis on why a game isn't popular. Now, maybe not every single person likes this particular video, but there are a lot of people who do. And because there are a lot of people that do like this type of video, they get value out of that. And it is really just that simple. How do you get people to give you money? Create value. And then they'll give you money. It doesn't matter if you're creating value with a YouTube channel, with selling lemonade, with selling OnlyFans, or with, streaming. It doesn't matter. Create value that is perceived as value in the eyes of the people that you are trying to sell it to, and they will buy it. It's that simple.
Look at the audience that you're trying to serve. Put a face to that audience and understand who that audience is before you can ever even think about trying to sell them anything.
Yeah.
The worst part is that many of these studios have forgotten our faces. They only see the dollars. And over the next few years, we're going to see that many of these studios, especially the AAA ones, while they will still be profitable, you're going to start to see some of these outliers pop up, these AA and single A studios that are going to start stealing away a lot of their money because they're the ones that are way ahead of the trends. They ain't chasing.
Well, they're not chasing the trends because they're the ones that make the trends. You're going to see a lot of games like Baldur's Gate 3 come out in 2 years. Why? Because of Baldur's Gate 3. And most of them are going to be bad.
Anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, drop a comment, like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. That's about it. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
That was a good one. I like that. They'll lack substance. Yeah, they won't be what... They won't be successful in the way that Baldur's Gate 3 was. AAA studios take less risks. They release the same game over and over. I understand that, but whenever you take less risks, sometimes that becomes a risk. And that's what happens. And I think Suicide Squad is the best example of that. I'll link you guys the video. This is a good one. Make sure to give it a like. I'm saying that is a bad thing. Well, taking risks isn't always a good or a bad thing. It depends on what the risk is. Here, I'll give you an example. Investing in a new company that you believe in. Is that a risk? Yes. Is it a good risk? Probably yes. Driving with your eyes closed. Is it a risk? Yes. Is it a good risk? No. Risks are not fundamentally good or bad. It depends on what you're risking and why. So yeah, kind of like Angel Investor, though. You're right. Absolutely. Depends on your goal. So I think that with a lot of these games, they're just really kind of directionless. They don't have like a focus. There's no North Star that these games are aiming for. And that's why, like, for example, I was actually quite excited to play. We're gonna start playing it now. The new Prince of Persia game. Because when was the last time a really big studio made a Metroidvania game? I'm really interested to see what this is going to be.